Greetings, you're listening to the Paranormal UK radio network, the UK's biggest paranormal network. I'm David Young and this is Paranormal Dimensions. Now I'm going to do something a little bit different from this show onwards. I'm going to give a shout out to people that are listening on the Paranormal Dimensions page. I just thought it'd be a little, give a bit of interest for people to maybe hear their name called out. And if you'd like a shout out, then drop me a line and maybe we can do it. Now, the first one's got to go out to my wife, Jill Young. Now, she puts up with quite a bit. So, and obviously we're in Suffolk, in the UK. So, hello, Jill. Then the second one I'm going to shout out hello to is Sam Fradley. He's in Paynton, Devon in the UK. And the third is Sharon Bradfield in Lowestoft, Suffolk. All right, so hope you're all going to be listening. And if you heard a noise there, I think that was my guest. Right, now we're going to be delving into another dimension of the paranormal, and this really concerns hoaxes. And this is probably the biggest hoax of all time, really. I'm not saying the Roswell crash itself was a hoax. I don't believe it was. Something happened, but something that followed on from it, which appeared in 1995, I believe it was. Anyway, I'll just do a little fill-in with. In July of 1947, something crashed in the desert near Roswell, near Roswell, New Mexico. The RAFAF, Roswell Air Force, put out a press release on the instructions of Major Jess Marcel, the intelligence officer stationed at Roswell, which in essence stated that they had captured a flying saucer that had crashed on a ranch owned by Mr. Mac Brazel, just outside of Roswell. Now, the military closed off the area and swiftly cleared the site. The following day, General Ramey, I think that's pronounced, made a shock announcement that they were in fact mistaken, and what they first believed to be a flying saucer turned out to be nothing more than a weather balloon. The people of Roswell knew it wasn't a weather balloon. Weather balloons are quite common and often fell in people's backyards. The sudden change of report from something as amazing and unusual as a flying saucer suddenly changed to the story of a weather balloon, which started an international debate. Now, many people reported that they had seen alien bodies. This was the perfect story for Spyros and his team to be basing their Alien and debris films supposedly from flying saucers crash site. So, I'll make no more ado. I'm going to introduce you to Spyros Melaris, my guest on this occasion, and it's going to be fascinating. Hello, Spyros.
Hello, David. Thank you for a wonderful intro.
Well, I try my best.
I look forward to chewing the fat with you. Let's see how we get on.
Yeah, I suppose really what we ought to really start with is how this whole thing kicked off, because I think that video appeared in about 1995, didn't it? And it appeared on Alien Autopsy, Fact or Fiction, I believe.
That's right. That's right.
I think at that time you didn't know too much about it, did you?
Well, I knew nothing about the alien subject. I mean, apart from the usual thing, the little green men, the flying saucers, and this general public stuff. I didn't know anything much about Roswell, to be honest. I'm not from the UFO community, no. So from my perspective it was good for that, because I was allowed to use my own imagination and put a different spin on the whole thing. I wasn't very familiar with it. I heard I met a guy called Ray Santilli that you probably all heard about, and he's the first one that said he had some film of an alien autopsy that he got from a military cameraman who was in Roswell in the army. So that was the first time I've ever heard of Roswell. It was a brand new subject to me. So from there on, he told me he had a film and he didn't. He had a piece of video which was made in England in a farm and very, very shoddy. And
yeah, it was all quite not too good apparently from what I remember.
It was known as the tent footage, and it was clearly not real. I mean, from the minute I saw it, I knew it wasn't real. And
but he tried to pass it off as real to you, did he?
Yeah, but not only me. I mean, to lots of other people. And really, I think I was his kind of his test, because if he could get it past me, then he had a chance to get it past people that didn't know anything about anything. But the minute I saw it, I knew it was a video a video shoot, if you like. It wasn't filmed on actual film, and that's a big giveaway because it wasn't available in 1947.
Yeah.
So that suddenly makes it a fake, right?
Yeah. Yeah, even I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's kind of where it kicked off from that.
Kicked off. Yeah. I basically thought, oh, you know what, we can make this properly. But I was coming from a different place. I wasn't out to scam anybody. I was. I'm a bit of a joker. I'm a magician. I'm out to have a little giggle now and again. I'm the first one. I'm first one to do a little practical joke on people. That's my nature. Nothing sinister. It wasn't anything.
You never thought it would blow up the way it did over many years.
Not in a million years, no. And I mean, just a few days ago, I got a message on YouTube telling me how this is real still. And
I know, it's ridiculous, isn't it? I know there's still people out there that still think it's real.
Yeah.
I suppose you've got to respect that, but at the same time, you just sort of wonder why. I mean, everything's been made so obvious to me. I mean, I've met you a couple of times, as you know.
Yeah. And
from what you say, it just makes common sense. I think these people are just not actually looking at the evidence myself, really.
Do you know what the problem is? The problem they have is in any kind of case that you want to tear apart. If you're looking at something and you want to dissect it to pieces, excuse the pun, but you want to dissect it to pieces and you want to find is it real or isn't it real? If you're just looking for that one smoking gun thing that makes it the definitive yes or no, then in something this complicated, it has multi-layers of elements that I've put into this. We were very, very careful, thought it out very, very well, and created a number of things in it which to make it look real, you see. That was the whole point.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, it does take quite a bit to get your head around it.
Yeah.
That's why I think that I know you've given this talk quite a number of times. You must get quite fed up with giving it, really. But,
no,
not. But at the same time, I think it does actually take quite a few listens to get your head actually around the whole story, really, as to how this occurred.
Yeah, I've had people come to my talks 2-3 times, and every time they say every time they come they hear new things, because what I do is I let the audience ask me questions and I go down that route. So it might not be the planned route, because all I have to do really is go from the beginning to the middle to the end. And what happens in between is so much stuff that if you started talking about, for example, elements of things in the room, then that takes us down a different conversation. If you wanted to talk about the people involved, that's a different conversation. It just carries on. But the thing that I was saying was, if you're looking to find the reason why this isn't real, it's not one thing. It's lots of little things. And the minute you accept that one thing is wrong, and then you look for the next thing, and then the next thing, what you suddenly realise is that you can't have so many things that are wrong and make this film right.
Yeah.
So you're looking for the big smoking gun element, but actually it's not one little thing. It's the fragments of gunpowder on the person's gloves. Yeah. It's not the bullet.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
If one thing's wrong, there's got to be a whole lot of things wrong. Yeah, I can get that. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't take into account when I say to them, for example, okay, let's run with the Santilli story for the moment. Okay. The Santilli story is that he actually got real 1947 film, and that it deteriorated and it became so bad that it couldn't be used. But he found these guys, myself and John, who recreated the things that were in the film that was deteriorated and made a new film. Okay, that's actually a lot better than what we actually did. If we did that, that's actually a bigger ask than to make it exact, because the next bit that he said was there are frames of the real film within the film that we made. Yeah. So that means that we've married up old film with new film, so it's seamless. Okay, that's amazing. I want to meet the guy that can do that, because I can't do that. So that's the story that Santilli has put out there, and he's staying with it. He's living with that story. But where it falls down is if that was true, then there was fake film and real film, then all we've got to do is find the real film, right? That's all we've got to do. Just isolate which is fake and what's real. And the way we can do that is by looking at items in the film that we know are fake and then crossing off those frames. Okay? So if we do that, for example, the autopsy table is fake. And I've proven it's fake. I've challenged everybody in the UFO community and the public to find another table like that in history, anywhere in the world, right? We've got Google, we've got Yahoo, we've got all the different search engines, we've got encyclopedias, and we've got the medical journals. There has to be another one that's like that, because you don't just make one.
No, of course not.
You machine up to make lots. That's what factories do. So especially a metal item like that, you know. So my statement is, this is fake, I made it, and it's my design, which means that there cannot be another one in history, right? Past 95, before 95, there can't be another one. That's my standpoint. And lo and behold, no one's been able to find another one in history. So when I say to you it's the only one, well, I took a big risk, didn't I?
Yeah.
I mean, if
You've got to be absolutely positive. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, you could have gone off and found one, and then there's me dead in the water. But that's not what happened. What happened was I was very confident, very bolshy, in fact, right? So by putting it on the public and saying, there you go, find one, okay? And they didn't. So, and still then, they're never going to find one.
And that challenge is still open, I understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm telling you, there isn't another one, I know for a fact. Therefore, I think it's fair to say we can cross off in 2019, we can say it's a fair bet that we can cross that off now. No one's found it in this time. Okay, so let's cross off all the cells that have an autopsy table in them. Okay, then it leaves us with a few frames, right? Then what we do is I made another challenge, and I said the autopsy had people wearing suits, and those suits I made and I designed, so they don't exist anywhere else in the world. Okay, I was challenged on that because some people said, "Oh yeah, but you know, maybe they're just not recorded. Maybe they're not." But there's a better part that goes on with this, right? And what that is if they were genuine fallout suits, then there would be an external air supply. If there was an external air supply, those suits would be pressurized. They would be full of air because no air can get out of them. Okay, so the air would go out of a tube, into a tube and out of a tube. So that's how you'd be breathing. So the actual suit itself would be pressurized, so it would be blown up. It would be like a balloon. But if you look at the autopsy, you'll see that they're not pressurized, and there's no visible means of air supply. Now, I deliberately didn't film the feet in the autopsy at all because nobody was wearing any shoes or boots, and it was just a bit difficult to make them, you know. So we had to make everything. So I thought, you know what, if I don't film the shoes, boots, they won't need to be made, and I can just save myself an awful lot of aggro. Yeah. But also my get out of jail card is when somebody said to me, or wouldn't talk to me because I was invisible at the time. If anybody said that was investigating it, well, there's no air supply, then the answer is, well, it could be a hose attached to a boot. So you're not seeing the boot, so there could be. It's just leave it open that there could be a hose, and therefore there could be an air supply. But that's only if you accept that the suit was pressurized, right? It had to be. But what we had to do when we were filming it, we had to cut holes in the top of the helmets because they were too hot, and the people in the suits couldn't breathe because they were airtight, you know. So and I thought we'd get away with, you know, I've got 3.5 minute reels, 50-foot reels of film in the camera. So I'm thinking to myself, well, you can hold your breath for a bit of black at the beginning, bit of black at the end. You can hold your breath for a couple of minutes, 2.5 minutes, and then I'll stop filming, right? Yeah. And as a bit of a slave driver. So I had everyone holding their breaths in those suits while I'm filming, and of course they're gasping. They're like goldfish out of water. And very hot as well. It was very uncomfortable.
I can imagine, yeah.
Yeah. So in the end, we agreed we'd cut some holes in the top of the helmets because they weren't being seen. You couldn't see the top. But here's the bit that gives it away. Now that I've told you that, if you look through the footage, you'll see that if you go to YouTube, you can find the clip on my YouTube channel. It's Spyros, Spyros.
Yeah. I'll put a link on the page actually as well.
Yeah, Spiz, space Spiz, Spiz. So it's on there, so you can watch it at your leisure. But if you watch the footage again, and just don't look at anything else but the helmets on the people that are in the film, you will see the helmets going up and down, up and down, flapping around, because there's now the reason that's faulty. That's the reason this is wrong is because for anybody who doesn't understand how a sealed suit works, is that it has to be sealed, so the only air you're breathing is the oxygen that comes in through the pipe that's being fed to the suit, and not the germs that are in the room. Okay. Now, if the helmet goes up and down, that means that the atmosphere outside of the helmet has an effect on the helmet, which means that every time they breathe in, the helmet goes down because the air above the helmet is being drawn into the suit. Okay. So they're supposed to be fallout suits to protect them from germs that they might get from an alien body they have no idea about. So suddenly we see them breathing the air. There's no point wearing those suits.
No, of course not. Yeah.
Right. So that's a massive giveaway. And all the scientists that have seen it, that I've explained this to, have accepted that those suits can't be real. Okay, for that very reason. So now we can cross off every frame that has a suit in it. Okay, and not only every frame that has a suit in it, but every frame that leads on from where a suit appears, or when a suit is seen and then it leads off to another shot. As long as it's uncut, as long as it's a seamless, straight shot, then the whole of the shot is fake, because you cannot have the next part in the same shot to be real if anything in it is unreal. It's not real,
course,
right? Yeah. So when you do that, what you're left with is nothing. You're left with a load of fuzzy shots of nothingness, no image at all. So where are the real frames, Mr. Santilli? Where are the real frames? There are none. And it's not open for debate even. It's not any logical person, any fair person is going to say, you know what, that's as good an argument as I've ever heard. And there's more. I mean, it's not the only stuff, but there's more.
Yeah, there's tons of stuff.
Yeah. So but those two things alone must start to point. I was told by a certain gentleman, I don't like to mention his name because I don't like to give him any publicity. He goes around doing talks on the Alien Autopsy. He hasn't got a clue what he's talking about, and people pay a fiver to go to a pub to see him.
You did do a show a couple of months ago, didn't you? I think with. Was that the same one?
I did a show. I did a show with Philip Mantle and him and Chris Evers, and he was supposed to come up with some evidence. I was supposed to do the same thing. He came up with nothing, and then he claimed it as a success, as some kind of victory. Anyway, listen, I'm not going to I'm not going to say bad things about him. All I'm going to say is he doesn't actually know what he's talking about.
No.
And he did say, and it's on record, when I asked him, okay, he believes the film is real. Does he believe I had any part in it? Did I make any part of the film? Now, bear in mind that everyone else involved, including Santilli, has said I was involved. Okay? They're on record as having said that. But I asked him the point-blank question, was I involved at all? And he said, no. You wasn't involved in any part of it. Okay? Well, that goes against what Santilli says, but it also tells me that his whole approach is very emotive. If you don't like me, that's fine. You don't have to like me. You can't like everybody, right? And not everybody can like you, and that's okay, right? I haven't got a problem with that. But you can't change the truth because you don't like somebody or because you don't like what they say. The truth is the truth. You have to argue with fact and with evidence.
I think you get to a point with people like that. They've believed something for so long, they just hate to be told that they're wrong in the end.
Yeah, and it's not even about being right or wrong. It's just about the truth. When I mean, you know, he can't understand how I can write to somebody who's showing my film and have it taken down, and why people actually do it, or why YouTube makes them do it. He can't get his head round that I own the copyright. He doesn't understand that on a legal basis, you know. But I suppose if we're fair, right? Because I like to do this, right? I like to do the fair thing because it opens up other arguments, right? But if we're fair, let's suppose this was a conspiracy and I was working for the Men in Black and the government. Let's suppose that was true. Then maybe I could have the government influence YouTube. Maybe, right? But how could I get the government to influence, for example, all the experts who've suddenly seen everything they didn't see at first, right? Because what they saw was a magic trick, right? They saw a magic trick. They saw the magic, and they said, "My God, I've just seen a miracle." And then I've done what magicians shouldn't do, and I've shown them how I did it. And then they've gone, "Oh God, we've been had." We can now see how he did it, right? So those people who were adamant that what they saw were real, well, a lot of them are independent. They're, you know, I mean, see, if you use a conspiracy thing, you can talk about. Are you familiar with Bob Shell?
I think I've heard that name. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Bob Shell was an independent film expert, and he had worked for various magazines, and he'd written for magazines, and he's an expert in his own right. And Bob gave an honest appraisal of what he was given, right? And what he was given was he was shown a real canister, because we bought some real 1947 film of Pathé news footage and a baseball game from Roswell in 1947 and various bits. So we actually had a real can. So it was genuinely 1947. And we also had other film that we took the leader from, which was also genuinely 1947, and we spliced that to my original film, which was 1995. Yeah. It wasn't even Kodak film. It was Fuji film, right? So, but nobody knows that. Nobody's going to get.
This is where it gets a bit complicated, isn't it? With this film thing, yeah.
Yeah, but if you show them an alien on a piece of film, and then you roll it back into an original 1947 can. But then they say, well, we need some frames to check. And then you just play the game. I'm sorry, it's too valuable. I can't give you anything. Well, just give me a bit of the front, the stuff without image on it. I just need to check it for the year. And now you give them a bit of baseball game that before it starts, it's just a bit of black and bit of fuzziness. Because you know, when you put film into a camera, you roll it onto the camera, and the camera's open. So you do it under a blanket or in a black bag.
Yeah.
So no light gets to it. But if a little bit of light gets through, it doesn't take much. You get flashes of light on the little bit of film which is exposed, okay? Then when you put the lid on and you run the camera, the film in the roll that wasn't exposed to any of the flashes of light starts to record, and that's now clean. So every time you do this, you always get a leader from every roll, a tail end and a front end of blank. And that could be flashes, it could be just black, it could be just white, it could be, you know, all sorts of fuzzy shapes. So we gave Bob some of that clip, and he saw it coming out of a 1947 tin, which was original, from a film that had an alien on it, and he put one and one together and made 10. So he took the film that he was given, tested it, and he found it to be 1947 film, shot in 1947 and developed soon after. That was his appraisal, which is great, which is probably what the baseball game was. It was probably filmed 1947 and developed soon after, right? So now here's where the conspiracy thing lends itself a little bit more to going against what I say, okay? Bob was found to, I think he shot his girlfriend, okay, and killed her. And he was done for manslaughter, not for murder. And he's in prison. So the reality is, he had a girlfriend, drove him mad, he had a gun in his hand, something happened and he shot her, right? That's the reality. The conspiracy theory is They're trying to silence him. He was talking too much about the Alien Autopsy, so they stitched him up and they put him in prison.
Right.
Well, you see how it fudges all the edges.
Yeah,
makes it,
yeah.
Right. So if you're a conspiracy theorist, that makes it, that's interesting. It's interesting how, and Cyril Wecht, who was the pathologist who was on the Fox program, on the Alien Autopsy Fact or Fiction program, died of old age. He's not around anymore, so you can't talk to him. It's a long time ago, right? Then you've got Stan Winston. He was the special effects expert who was also on the Fox program. He's dead because he's old. He was an old guy, so he died of old age, right? But all of a sudden, when you're looking at this, how long ago is it now? 25 years ago?
Probably, yeah.
24 years ago, right? So, it doesn't take a genius to work it out. They're just dying of old age. It's not a big deal. It's not like a big conspiracy thing. But when you look at it from a conspiracy theory, you say, you know what? Isn't it convenient that we can't talk to these people anymore? And the only people that you can talk to are people like Clifford Stone, who I've called him a liar before. I don't do this often. I don't say things like that unless I'm 100% sure, because it's not fair, right? But I know that Clifford is either lying or Clifford is a fantasist. He's somehow said it so many times, is believing it himself. He told me in an interview that he saw my film in a military institution in 1969. Okay, so that's quite compelling, isn't it? And when I did the interview, he told me about how he was tortured and he was interrogated, and how they stripped him of his put him in prison, and then in a mental institution, not in prison. And then when he came out, they reinstated him, and well, I don't know what his story is. I know he's had a lot of stuff in his life to deal with, which wasn't pleasant. But I don't think it's anything to do with this, right? I don't think it's, with the alien subject. That might have helped him put him into an establishment, because when you lose it and you start talking about aliens, I suppose to somebody who's not into the subject, it might be the reason.
Yeah.
But I'm going to call him either a liar or a fantasist. And the reason is because the film wasn't made till 1995. I know that for a fact. So whether or not you believe me or anyone else that's listening believes me is irrelevant, because the fact doesn't change, because I know, right? So if it's only for me, I know that he's not telling the truth. So what else can I call him?
Right. Well, if you can back it up with facts, then I don't see what else you can call. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm saying, listen, I've got evidence it was made in 1995, because by mistake. Not because I'm actually to my worst. It's to my detriment. It's the worst thing I did, really, in reality. Although I would do it again, because I'm a man of my own word. I'm an honourable person. If I say I promise I won't tell somebody, I don't. Right? I'm a magician. I don't tell secrets. I don't. Right? But more than that, if I promise that this is what we're going to do, I do exactly what I promise. And I promised Santilli I would not discuss the Alien Autopsy until it became public domain, until he put it into the public domain, because until then it had to remain secret. So I did that, and I promised, and I gave him all the stuff that was in it, so none of my team could go to the News of the World and sell the story, because it was very valuable. One single picture was worth £20,000 at the time. So I was being very careful that none of us were tempted, because I know what human nature's like, and if we gave him everything. But by mistake, and it really is a mistake, I had a tape on my shelf in my edit suite, which was direct from the lab where I had the film developed, and it's dated, and it's got footage in that was released, that Santilli released as not with alien on it, but with the debris footage on it. And Santilli released that as real, so you can't pick and choose. He released that as real. He released it all as real, But the fact that I've got the lab, the label from the lab, my company name on it, the footage, and the actual cassette with the footage unaged, right, which is important. So I've got very clean footage of material that's Antilles released, which looks very faded and old.
Yeah.
Right. So why would you fade if you've got clean footage and it's genuine? Why wouldn't you just release that? Right. You wouldn't want to just make it worse.
Yeah, just
right?
to make it look old. Yeah.
Yeah. You'd only do that if you wanted it to make it look old because it wasn't old. Right. So I have got that, and I've held back for a long time on my book, and I'm teased about it by many people because they expect it every time we speak. Oh, when's the book coming out? You know.
I was going to ask you that question later, but carry on.
Yeah, well, people do that all the time, and I'm glad I didn't release it before now because so much has happened. I would have had to release a second book because there would have been more stuff, and I've got definitive stuff that's just come out of the woodwork, stuff that's happened, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to give the public the smoking gun they're looking for, because there's a few things that have propped up that will be useful. Also, some very, very big developments are happening. I was offered a 6-part TV series with a very big TV network a little while ago, and I've turned it down now because
I did hear about it.
Yeah, I've got a movie. I'm doing a proper movie.
Oh, wow.
And the makers of the movie are basically saying, well, look, the movie's going to do exactly what this documentary is going to do, but better. And
I could imagine it'd make a fantastic movie. Yeah, that's a fantastic
story. I'm not making that much money on the TV thing that is so much money that it's worth doing. So I don't want to rock the boat. Now I've met some fantastic people who. In fact, 2 of the biggest names in cinema, I would imagine, current, today, and we're doing some great stuff. And they want to make a proper Hollywood movie with big actors to tell the full story, right up to today. Like right up to the release of the book. And I find that that's a nice ending. If had I released the book earlier. It changes everything. It kind of stunts it, and I'm glad I didn't do it because I would have released a number of things in the book that are better off told in the film.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic. I hope you'll invite me to the premiere.
Absolutely. You and all my other friends in the UFO community, absolutely.
Fantastic.
Excluding
1 or 2.
The other 2 we've mentioned, who have been very rude, by the way. I mean, they've been. And I've been rude too. I've got to own up. I've got to own up, right? My feathers were ruffled.
I think you were fighting fire with fire, though, Spyros.
Yeah,
to be honest.
But you know what though? After a while, you just lose it, don't you? You just think, what, enough. Come on. I've tried to do this in a nice way and explain it in a nice way, and I can explain it to you, but I can't make you know what I'm talking about. I can't, I can't understand it for you. You've got to understand it for yourself. And if you haven't got the capacity to do that, well, it's that old adage. You should never pick an argument with an idiot because they'll just beat you with experience.
Yeah.
I
know. I did see some of the conversations. I thought they were quite entertaining and quite funny, really. But
they were when you look back.
But as an outsider.
Yeah. When you look at them, they're just funny. They're just funny because it's like, what? So
well, some went on and on and on, didn't they? Anyway, sorry, I'll digress. Go.
No. I won't have. I mean, funny enough, these guys that I'm talking to about the movie now, they actually asked me if I want to direct the film, which I found an interesting question because I think it's too big for me to direct, and I'm too close to it. But what I did insist on directing was the actual recreation of the Alien Autopsy footage. So what we've agreed is that we're going to have a named director direct the movie, and I'm going to be a unit director that recreates the footage.
Well, that makes sense,
but what that does is 2 things. First thing it does, it shows I made the first one. Yeah. Because I'm nobody knows it more intimately than myself. So if I translated it to somebody else, lots of people have copied the footage. Lots of people have made their own little spoofs, and they're out there, And all they do to stylize it, and it's not a difficult film to stylize because it's quite very, very simple. All you need is a little table and you need a clock on the wall, and you need the autopsy table itself, and you need a window panel behind the. It's very easy to recreate the set and put a telephone on the wall, and you know what? You're nearly there. Okay, and as long as it's all white and a little bit wishy-washy, and you've got these guys in white suits, you've pretty much recreated it. But if you're recreating it religiously, you need to know lots of other things. Things that if I sat down with you and we watched the film, I would point things out to you, and you go, "Oh my God, I never noticed that before. I never noticed that before." And I will show you lots of things that only I know. And because when you're watching any movie, what you do is you watch the story, and you get engrossed in the story, and you kind of get carried away with the story. You miss little bits, which is why in Ben-Hur, somebody wearing a Rolex watch.
Yes, I know about that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You don't get. They don't
I think there was a car in it as well, wasn't there? Somewhere in the background.
Yeah. Just ridiculous stuff. But you miss it when you're into the film. It's only when you stop and you analyze it and you break it down to pieces and you find these little things, right? And because you're looking for them. But for me, a good film for me is when I don't see the edits. If I sit and watch a film and I forget it's a film, that's a good film. If I sit and watch a film and I see the edits, because I'm an editor, I'll sit down and as I'm watching a film, I can see every cut, every single cut, every dissolve, I see it all. And if it jars, it's a bad movie, because I'm now pulling it to pieces. I'm re-editing it in my head. Right? So you can't get into a movie if that's what you're watching. But if you watch a movie and it takes you away and it carries you away into the film and the story, then that's a good movie. And that's why these little bits and pieces are only seen by people who are editors, people that are looking at every little detail. Because the general public wouldn't see the Rolex watch; they just wouldn't see it. So again, I can show you a number of things, not mistakes, but things I put in there which I didn't actually need to put in there because it was overkill. I put things into that film in case they were seen, because I don't know what I'm going to film. Because when you film with a modern camera, you can actually see through the viewfinder, through the lens. So what you see is what you're filming. Okay, with an old camera, the viewfinder is a separate tube that you see through, and it's situated a little bit away from the lens, maybe a little bit higher above the lens. And what you're looking at isn't necessarily what you're filming, because the lens is a different tube, and it's recording a slightly different part of that frame.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Okay, so if you're shooting, say, a tight shot, and you're trying to cut something out, well, on that kind of film where you're not looking through the lens, an SLR camera, you would actually see bits you didn't intend to be seen. So I had to make sure I had lots of things around edges and stuff, so I didn't have to cut anything out. I didn't have to worry about if you saw something, because if you did see something, it would add to it rather than take it away. I put for example, Bakelite electric outlets in 3 places in the film. You only get to see 2, right? So the other one was for nothing, right? But when I bought them, I put out a feeler in America. I needed some 45 to 47 electric outlets, and they're Bakelite. They're made out of Bakelite, and they found 3 as a parcel. So I bought the 3. And I thought I might as well use it. I've got one for the clock, and I've got one to the right hand side of the autopsy table, and you momentarily see that come into shot.
So I'm going to jump in. Does that mean that all this stuff will actually be used in the movie, or is that going to be, or is it all gone?
Well, it's all gone, but in the movie, because we don't have to worry about people scrutinising it whether or not it's real or not. All of this stuff can be made.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Okay. So those props that we can't buy, we can make it. But no one's going to, in a movie, no one is going to say that clock isn't a genuine 1946
no, of course not. No,
clock,
no, that makes
right?
sense.
If it was a clock that was from the 50s, right? No one cares, because nobody's scrutinising the film anymore. What they're doing is they're following the story. right? We'll try and make it as spot on as possible, and I think we'd probably be able to get away with, all these things are still available, they're still around.
Yeah.
I dare say they'd be more expensive than they were at the time when I did it.
Well, obviously you'll be pointing out in the film the things that people will be looking out for. I presume.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's yeah.
What you're going to see actors playing the role of myself, John, my ex-girlfriend who was the nurse in the film, my partner Greg Simmons, my brother Peter who was helped with some of the set, and all the different people that were involved. So all these people from different walks of life, even the butcher, loads of different people that were they didn't know they were involved. All these people will be cast. But unlike the Ant and Dec film, which I call it the Gary and Ray show, because that's all it is. It's just one big ego trip, and they cut John out. They made John an elderly mannequin maker who was dating the old lady. It's just nonsense. The whole thing was just nonsense. They made me a kebab shop owner. A Turkish kebab shop owner who does wedding videos on the weekend. It's just, it is funny. It's funny if you can step away from it and just think, well, if you were Ray, what would you do to stick a little needle in? They made Volker a gay man with a black boyfriend and an arms dealer. And so they just what can we do to upset Volker?
Yeah, make it as ridiculous as possible. Yeah.
Let's make him all these things that he wouldn't want to be. Not that there's anything wrong with this. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any of those people, but the combination is what's funny, right? You can't, if you're a black guy, good luck. I've got loads of black friends.
Yeah,
I've got a problem with them, right? I've got lots of gay friends. I haven't got a problem with them either. I haven't got a problem with a black gay friend, right? But when you make him an arms dealer and you push the boat out and you carry on making them even, so this guy's now going to invest in an Alien Autopsy film, and you take it so far,
more and more ridiculous.
Yeah, it just becomes funny, right? And the guy at one point in the Ant and Dec film was naked in a crop field, in a crop circle. It's just nonsense. The whole thing is just too much, right? So, unlike the Gary and Ray show, and it's a bit bubblegummy, it's a bit, it's not about Gary and Ray. Gary and Ray are in it, and they play their part. And I'm in it, I play my part. And it's a much bigger story than what the Ant and Dec film was. But the problem they had is when they cut me out of the Ant and Dec film, they didn't have anything that happened to me. So all the things that really happened while we were making it, they had no knowledge of it. Now, I was the only person that was involved in every aspect of the film, apart from selling the film, okay? But the making of the film, I was involved in negotiating with Ray about budget. I was involved in the meetings between Gary, Ray, myself, and Volker, and all these. So I was on the business side over there, working that out. But I was also involved in the designing of the creature and pulling the team together and getting John involved to sculpt the creature and make some props with me. I was involved with my ex-girlfriend who had a sewing machine, so I was able to cut the material, make the suits, design the suits, give it to her to stitch together. She also did all the research and went off on her. So I was being reported to by every member of the team with their little aspect. So I was in the center of the circle, and I was pulling information from everybody all around the circle, where any one of those people was only getting their interaction between myself and them. They were, John wasn't involved with anything to do with the research or with the making of the costumes, or he wasn't involved in that, so he has no knowledge of it. John was never in any of the meetings with Santilli, for example. So Santilli didn't meet John until after the alien was sculpted.
Right.
So right. So the story that John was shown real film that he then copied and made the alien, that doesn't work, because chronologically the only person that could have shown him any film is me, right? Yeah. And I'd never seen any real film, so he didn't see any film from me. He got my sketches. So right? That's what he saw. But he said that Santilli showed him film. Well, he never met Santilli until the Alien was made, right? So the whole thing doesn't work. And I've crossed this with John, and I've said, John, look, I don't want to make you look bad in public, because I'm going to tell the story as it is. And you're on record as having said these things, and they're going to be found to be lies, right? So what's your position? How do you feel about that? Do you want to come clean and tell the story, or do you want to just stay where you are? Well, I don't know what your deal is with Santilli, because he's in his pocket, you know. I mean, John was being paid by Santilli, so he took the money and ran, right?
See.
So I don't blame him. He just had a young family. He had a young family, needed the money. You know what? I don't blame him. That's not for me. It's not a personal anything. I haven't got a problem with it. So, as a friend, I said to John, just tell me what you want to do, because I'm going to do a number of things. I'm going to copyright the film in my name. I'm also going to copyright the creature. Now, I know that you and I created that creature together. So you should be a 50-50 partner on the copyright of that creature. So if you're telling me that you saw real film, then you cannot have created it. So you don't deserve any part of the copyright. Am I right or not? And he said, yeah. I said, okay. But then in history, what will happen is I'm going to copyright everything in my name, and I can prove everything it's mine, and I'll get it. And when that happens, you're going to be cut out of it by your own design. Not because I've done anything terrible to you. I'm not going to stitch you up. But that's why we're having this conversation. So do you want to be in, or are you out? Very simple. And he said, you know what, Spyros, I don't blame you. I've done a few things that I shouldn't have done, and I regret it now, but it's done. And he said, so what I'm going to do, he said, I'm not going to discuss it with anybody ever again.
All right.
I said, so what does that mean? He said, well, I'm not going to talk to anybody anymore. I'm not going to have any more conversations with anybody, no more interviews, nothing. That's it. I'm going to just disappear now. And I'm not going to answer any questions. I don't blame you for doing what you're going to do. But he said, that's what I'm going to do. So I said, that's cool. I'm happy with that. So I went ahead, and it took me best part of a year to get the copyright in my name, because there was already a copyright at the US Library of Congress in the name of Santilli's company, but they weren't claiming to own the copyright of the making of the film. They were claiming that they bought the film,
Right.
and they owned the registration of the copyright. And they listed it as a 1947 film, and it was shot by a anonymous cameraman. And strangely, it says on the registration, place of filming, Italy. So, yeah, strange, right? Why would you put Italy? Now Santilli is Italian, right? So I would wager that that's got to be something to do with the place that this might be tried if found to be fake. And in Italy, good luck with getting any justice, because you can buy everybody, right? So that's my guess, but I don't really know. But anyway, so I dissected everything. I pulled it all apart, and I said, okay, first of all, it's not a 1947 film. Here's my film. It's 1995, and I proved it. And then all of a sudden, they're thinking, okay, so it's 1995. I said, right, here's all the stuff I've got that shows me as the guy in the middle, and I proved that I filmed it. I proved it was my idea. I proved that I showed my design, my drawings, my this and that. So they went through the whole thing, and they accepted that it's my film, and they've registered it. My film, made in 1995, and that's nothing else. Nobody else has got any credit on it. But they still have a film in the archive, which is exactly my film, dated 1947, with Orbital Media as the owner. And I said, well, how can you leave two identical films with two different dates on it? How can you leave that film in place? And they said to me, well, we're not proactive, we're reactive. So if you were to take action, we would react to that action, but we won't take it down ourselves. We need to be told to take it down. That's how they operate. So I said, okay. So as part of the film, that's what's going to be, that's going to be part of the, the tail end of what happens. But
I did mention it was a bit complicated. It's quite a complicated.
Oh, you have no idea. Oh, yeah. But I think a movie is the right way to go. It's the right way to do it. So, like I said, I don't want to direct the film in its entirety. I think it wouldn't be doing it justice. It needs to have a big name. I would love a Steven Spielberg or a Danny Boyle, or somebody of that ilk. And I think that's very doable.
I think it'd be a storming success as well.
I think so. I think it will make a big difference because the Anton Deck film just left everyone thinking, okay, but really, it was made very cheaply. This would have a proper budget. I have made one request, and that's the only request that I've made, apart from me directing the autopsy footage as a second unit, is I've insisted that Danny DeVito plays Ray Santilli.
Is that for it?
You know what? It has to be, right. You got to do something. 'Cause I can't be living with this, Turkish kebab shop owner. That's not fair.
That's quite funny.
That does wedding videos on the weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite funny.
Yeah.
It'd be funny if he signs up for it, wouldn't it?
Well, you know what? I say it's not my call who plays who. No. People have asked me, well, who's going to play you? Well, you know what? As long as it fits and it's right, I'm not. I don't. People
Brad
think
Pitt or someone like that.
Yeah, that's it. That's the obvious thing to say, isn't it? But you know what? I know I'm more of a realist. And if Jack Black was a bit younger, right? Because don't forget, it's me 25 years ago. Right, so if Jack Black's too old, but Jack Black would have been ideal. He would have played the role very well. But it needs to be somebody that's going to play the role. Simon Pegg would play John perfectly. Simon Pegg is the right guy for John. Again, he's now a bit too old. The younger Simon Pegg. Are you familiar with Simon Pegg?
Yes, yeah.
So I've got my ideas, but you know what? I'm not putting the money on the table. So
no, I suppose you're up to make suggestions and things, I presume, and then they see if they're free and they can get them. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell people who, I'm going to tell the whole screenplay will be written again. So it'll be written from my book. And dramatized, so there'll be lots of subplots. There'll be things that just to keep it interesting, because it wasn't just about making Alien Autopsy. What was my relationship with Santilli? What was my relationship?
Oh, of course, it's a big story.
Yeah, there was my relationship with my girlfriend, for example, at the time. There was a little subplot there. My relationship with John and the twins, and so there was lots and lots of little subplots which explains why this team was so tight. Right, because we were very, very tight, and that's where the trust came from.
Yeah, there's quite a few different characterizations as well to be thinking about, isn't there? Cause...
Yeah, and the qualifications of those people. To say that I filmed this because I was qualified because I did wedding videos on the weekend is not. It's not an insult to me or wedding videographers. That isn't the issue. The issue is. It needed an expertise on a number of levels. Not that I'm a great expert in anything, but I have experience in various things. I've from the age of 6, I've been filming on cine film, right, on cameras, on film cameras. I had the very, very first non-linear edit suite. That's a computer editing suite. I was one of 3 people in the UK that had one. BBC was the other, and there was one as a company, Castle, in Ireland. These are the. I'm a major player in a lot of areas that nobody knows about. So when I look at doing this, I've got experience of prop making. I knew John, who was doing film special effects on a very high level. So I had access to so much information and stuff that if it wasn't me in that seat, it wouldn't have been the same film. And if it wasn't John making it, wouldn't have been the same film. And if it wasn't my ex-girlfriend doing the research, it wouldn't have been the same film. So you pull all this expertise together, and by some freak of nature, you've pulled together an impossible team. And that's how it worked. And I think the subplots of the relationships of everybody are very, very important. As important as pulling the thing off, because it's the reason it happened. So where the Ant and Dec film failed was they only had the perspective of Gary and Ray. And obviously John was involved, because I don't know if you know this, but John sculpted the alien that was in the Ant and Dec film, and he phoned me and said, "Look, have you got a problem with me doing this?" Now, that was the first time I heard the film was going ahead, because I was asked if I wanted to be a part of it, and I said no, I don't think we should do it, and because they positioned it that we were doing it for fun, and it was the first time we were going to reveal the truth, and the whole idea was that we would make our money by revealing it. It wasn't by selling it. I had no idea until he was selling it all over the world. I thought he was giving the footage, and people were making programs about it, and then we were going to then make a new program to say, "Ha, this is how we did it." Right? I
remember you saying about how surprised you were to one day be sitting watching the television and somebody told you about it. It was on a different channel or something, wasn't it?
Yeah. And different countries, in different languages, and I just thought I couldn't believe that when I found out he was selling it, and for the amounts of money that he took. And I thought, no wonder he didn't care about the big reveal, because he'd rather not reveal it, because he's made loads of money. So that made sense after the event. But I was, people said to me, a lot of people asked me, why didn't you speak up before when you found out he's selling it? And, I didn't find out until just before the Ant and Dec film that all this was going on. But more importantly, I was signed to a non-disclosure agreement, and a promise that I made that I would never reveal it until it was in the public domain. And the story that I was being given by Santilli, and stupidly, I just believed it. I say stupidly, I'm not a stupid person, but you know what? When your friend tells you something, you believe them. They're your friend. They're not. You don't know what they're doing behind your back. So when he said to me, "Oh, people are ripping it off, and we're being ripped off, and we can't sue them because if we sue them, all that's going to happen is the judge is going to say, well, this is a genuine military film, and it's not yours anyway. So how can you make a claim on it?" And it kind of, I thought, oh, you're right, we shot ourselves in the foot. I bought it, just bought the story. Little did I know that he'd registered it as a genuine 1947 film, and he was selling it to everybody. So whether or not there is a legal issue with the registration of 1947, I'm not going to say anything on this program, which is going to point the finger, but I would kind of wager that there's some wrongdoing here, and that will come out in the wash, I would imagine, and we'll see how that pans out.
Certainly,
but
yeah.
I don't think you can say on a public, on a government website, I don't think you can say something's 1947 and it isn't.
Oh, it's got to be, it's got to be, I can see exactly where you're going.
Yeah, and then sell it to somebody on the back of that registration.
Oh my
so I would imagine there's something wrong there. Yeah. So we'll see how that pans out. I've
got to stop you there. So I'm sorry, we've actually run out of time, and it's been so fascinating. It's gone so quickly.
Yes.
Well, I don't know if you'd like to come back and do a part 2, perhaps, maybe.
I don't mind. I'll be very happy to.
Yeah, because I know we've left a lot of stuff out about all the clock and the wires and your building in Camden Town and everything. Yeah. Would you like to?
I'd love to. Just let me know when, and I'll be
okay
there.
Then that's great. That's smashing. Thanks, Spyros. And
okay, friend.
And well, everyone out there, thanks for listening. I hope you've been as fascinated as I have been. And well, I will get Spyros back to do a part 2, and we'll continue where we left off. And that's brilliant. Anyway, thanks, Spyros.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much for coming on, Spyros. It's been fantastic, and I will get back on. Perhaps in a few weeks, then we'll continue this. It's brilliant. Thank you. Right, bye, Spyros, and bye everyone out there. Thank you for listening. Thank you. Bye.